Welcome to Candid Catholic Convos, a program brought to you by the Catholic Diocese of Harrisburg. Our mission is to humanize the Church and help you to grow in your faith, love, and understanding. I'm your host, Rachel Trochet, a cradle Catholic who's only human and struggled with faith on more than one occasion. Each week, you'll hear engaging, down-to-earth interviews and actionable strategies you can implement into your life with ease to help you grow closer to God. If you're ready to open your heart and step fully into the person God created you to be, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Candid Catholic Convos. Before we jump in, I just want to thank you for listening. Being able to minister to you in this way over the airwaves, wherever you're listening, has been such a joy for me, and I hope to continue to do so long into the future. Because of your generous donations to the Catholic Communications Campaign over the years, we were able to produce and distribute more than 80 videos, 100 radio and podcast episodes, and over 1,000 social media messages last year, all spreading the love of Christ. That's huge. So if you found value in these ministries over the years, please consider supporting this year's Catholic Communications Campaign at hbgdiocese.org/ccc or by dropping your donation in the collection basket at Mass on June 18th, so we can continue to provide these services across the diocese for everyone to enjoy. It's a season of transition in my house. Not only is the weather changing from spring to summer, my kids are transitioning from a school schedule to a summer routine. I now have a second grader, a first grader, and a preschooler on his last year before kindergarten. And it is crazy, but in all the good ways. The diocese is in the middle of a transition as well, as I'm sure you're aware. On June 21st, Bishop Timothy Sr. will be installed as the 12th Bishop of Harrisburg, and Bishop Gaynor will become Bishop Emeritus, embarking on his well-earned retirement. I'm excited to welcome Bishop Gaynor back to Candid Catholic Convos for what will likely be his last interview with us as a diocesan bishop, to chat about his most memorable moments, the art of transitioning well, and what the next chapter of his life will look like. Bishop Gaynor, thank you so much for making the time to sit down with us again and chat on what very may well be the last time we get to chat with you on this program for a while. It's always a pleasure and an honor to have you here, so thank you very much.
You're most welcome, Rachel. I'm very happy to be with you and happy to have this opportunity.
I was thinking about this the other day. The last time we spoke on this program was almost a year ago. You had just submitted your resignation to the Pope as per canon law, and the waiting process had begun. And then on April 25th, Pope Francis announced that he had appointed Bishop Timothy Sr. as the 12th Bishop of Harrisburg. So during this period of waiting, the diocese, we just continued to operate as though nothing was changing. But now that it's official, things are moving very, very quickly. So what are the next steps for the diocese as a whole? What can we expect in these next couple weeks?
Well, I think mostly it's preparation for the installation of our new bishop, the 12th Bishop of Harrisburg, Bishop Timothy Sr. But as you mentioned, Rachel, I submitted my letter to Pope Francis on the 8th of August in anticipation of my 75th birthday, which was later in the month of August. And then nothing happens then, because it's simply, as you pointed out, there was a waiting. There was no change whatsoever. And there's a sort of a process begins there. And I'm sure that process was delayed because we were still in the works of the reorganization through bankruptcy, Chapter 11. And I think maybe they were slow pacing the process of finding my replacement because of that. But then, as you point out, only a few weeks after we came out of bankruptcy, then the Holy Father announced that the 12th Bishop of Harrisburg has been selected, and we announced that. So in this interim now, on that day, the April 25th, I became the apostolic administrator, which basically has the same responsibilities and authorities as a diocesan bishop, with a few exceptions. So the purpose for that, of course, is that the diocese can continue in a stable way to function and be what it needs to be as the local church. Since Bishop Senior was already a bishop, he's a bishop 13 years, we had only 2 months from the day of the announcement, April 25th, to have his installation. So you see, we came pretty close to that outer limit there because it's June 21st, the latest. It would have been June 25th. But in the meantime, a lot of the time now in the diocese is spent in preparation, all the many, many details, all of the people who need to be invited to the both the Vespers, that's an open invitation the night before, and then the actual Mass of installation, which Archbishop Nelson Perez, the Archbishop of Philadelphia and the Metropolitan for Pennsylvania, he will preside at that Mass. And so right now, I think a lot of the activity is with regard to preparing for the installation of Bishop Senior.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate the sense of continuity that we have, where as an apostolic administrator, that you're still here to help kind of guide us through into the next phase. And I really appreciate that. That's pretty wonderful. And I'm very excited for this installation. This will be my first time being able to kind of witness something like that. You know, growing up, I'd always heard about it when there was a bishop transition, like Bishop Dattilo and Bishop Rhodes, but never was able to witness it. And now with the advances of live stream, a lot of our diocesan members will be able to witness it as well, because it is invitation only to the actual events.
Exactly, and I know many people will be interested in being able to view at least the wonderful ceremony, and I know it's going to be just a beautiful liturgy, a very joyous time for thanking God. And as you point out, leaders come and go, bishops come and go, but the church remains, and the mission of the church remains. And so over the centuries, the church has developed through experience this process that maintains the stability even during what's called an empty see. At the moment of that announcement on April the 25th, canonically, Harrisburg became, in the Latin term, a sede vacante, a vacant see, and that's why I was appointed the administrator, so I had no official diocesan bishop. Nevertheless, we provide for that stability, as you mentioned, so that all of the aspects of the local church can function during this interim time. So I'm sure that the church has learned this process over centuries through experience. And what's most important are not the people, not the leaders, but it's the mission of the church and proclaiming Christ to the world. And that's something that can't be impeded even for a period of 2 months when we're preparing for a new bishop. My retirement and the installation or the appointment of Bishop Senior is done directly by the Holy Father. And so we will get, and on the day of the installation, there will be a beautiful manuscript that will be opened probably by the nuncio, the apostolic nuncio, Archbishop Christophe Pierre, and that will be shown to everyone in eyesight. I'm not sure how they do it. Sometimes they have the new bishop actually walk around showing it to the College of Consultors, that group of priests, that one of the few bodies of, one of the few councils in the diocese that continues in function. For instance, the priest council ceases to function, the presbyteral council, the priest council, the pastoral council ceases to function, the finance council and the council of consultors continue even during the sede vacante. So they'll have that. So the appointment, though, I don't have anything to do with the appointment of Bishop Senior. I don't consent to his appointment. It is directly the result of the appointment of our Holy Father, Pope Francis, who has the universal responsibility for the pastors of the church. So one thing that might be of some interest is that I have an option, and I've chosen to do this, and that is that there'll be kind of a divorce in the field of heraldry. They call it a marriage. My personal shield as a bishop, which I had to devise when I was made a bishop back in 2003, has always been joined to the diocese where I was bishop. So it was joined to Lexington's shield. My shield is on the right, and the diocesan shield on the left, and that forms one shield to show the union between the bishop and the local church. And so when I came to Harrisburg, my shield was joined to the Harrisburg diocesan shield. As of June 21st, I've chosen that my shield now will stand alone. I could leave it, but the real tradition in the church is to the new bishop would be the only shield that's wedded to the diocesan shield. So I kind of say there's a sort of a divorce that's going to happen. That wedding of my shield to Harrisburg's shield will be separated, and my shield will now stand alone. So that's one little maybe point of interest about the transition. But I don't sign any documents that welcome or that consent to Bishop Senior's appointment. That's totally the sole responsibility under the authority of Pope Francis.
That's fascinating. It's such a beautiful piece of imagery as well, and I appreciate the way you described that. That's really interesting, and that's something I didn't know.
Yeah, there's also rules in heraldry, and it was fun devising that. I was the last thing on my mind. The day after I was announced to be a bishop, a man called me who was a deacon, and my name is James Sullivan. He's now gone on to God, but he did about 90% of the bishop's shields, and if new dioceses were formed, he was an expert in heraldry, and that's an area that I knew absolutely nothing about, and wasn't on my mind whatsoever. You had to pick a motto, and you had to devise a shield, a coat of arms, and he was a great help. In fact, he just sent me different sketches, and I chose what I wanted. But yeah, so that shield now will be my shield standing by itself as the Bishop Emeritus.
So continuing on with the topic of change, now you have to change your shield. Change is inevitable, but the ability to make the transition, to actually engage with that change is almost an art form. And as you mentioned, this is not your first time transitioning as a bishop, having been transferred from Lexington to Harrisburg, but now you're transitioning from being the diocesan bishop to Bishop Emeritus. What does that mean in terms of your new day-to-day, and how are you handling this transition?
Well, I hope I'm handling fairly well, but primarily my day-to-day functioning hasn't changed since April 25th. I continue to come each day to the office and have the various meetings and appointments, and also the public events. I'm wrapping up 30 confirmations this coming Sunday. The first Sunday of June will be my final 30th confirmation of the spring confirmation season. And also, this has been a time for our high school graduations and baccalaureate masses. So I've wrapping that up. So I'm still doing the public events and the personal appointments and meetings that are part of the everyday routine of the bishop. That'll cease after June 21st, and I'll be around to be able to help Bishop Senior in whatever way he wishes. Personally, the last 3 weeks have been a constant packing, so getting rid of a lot of things that I've accumulated and don't need and don't want to hold on to, and also packing those things that are going to travel with me. I'll be living for some months at the priest retirement residence right here on the same campus as the diocesan offices, and then eventually I'm going to move into a house that's in Mechanicsburg. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be a whole new routine for me.
Absolutely. And I empathize with you because we moved in November of last year. So moving is very stressful, but it will be wonderful once you're nice and settled.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of help. So that's a good thing too. I don't want to give the impression I'm doing this by myself, but there's so many things that have to be done. I just at which point, I had a really vast collection of books, and much too many, and so it was hard deciding I would keep this one and give this away. So that was draining.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, every time we talk, you are just such a wealth of knowledge, and I am so enthralled when I hear you speak and giving the origins of words and just history in general. Can you expand a little bit more about your love of that and your love of educating and how that kind of came to be, and if you look forward to continuing that in the future?
Sure, I do, and I hope I'll have opportunities to continue to speak and teach as well. I'll have more free time to be able to do that. I enjoyed very much. I had the opportunity to teach for 8 years, actually, in seminaries, 2 in Mary Immaculate Seminary and 6 at St. Charles, which is my alma mater in Philadelphia. So I think my love of words came from the fact that in college seminary, we were exposed to classical languages. I had a lot of Latin, a lot of Greek, and some Hebrew. And when you study those languages, you begin to see how much our English and other Romance languages depend upon those classical languages. And so I think I had that love for word study. And it's been, and I think when I've mentioned it in homilies or speeches, it also fascinates a lot of people, I think. So for me, it's always a help to the more profound meaning, especially when we're looking at the sacred scriptures and those words. We go back to the original language of Greek or Hebrew, and you find the depth of meaning in those that really we're only skimming the surface by our English words. And many times the English words have a slightly different nuance to it than the original language does. So that for me that was always fascinating, and I like to share that with everyone. So I do hope that in retirement I'll have the opportunity. Certainly, I'll be preaching whenever I have the opportunity to celebrate Mass. But at the same time, I'd like to be able to have some opportunities to do some perhaps series in parishes where I might be invited, or give some talks anyway on various topics. That would certainly I would enjoy preparing those things. For me, the education is in the preparation for homilies and preparation for giving talks and presentations. So that's the part that I enjoy very much. And then the delight of trying to communicate those thoughts to your listeners. I've always enjoyed that. So
That would be wonderful. I'm sure you would have a wonderful turnout if that series were to take off. Having been in the Diocese of Harrisburg and just having been a bishop in general over several years, what would you consider to be your greatest accomplishments and conversely your toughest challenges?
I think everyone is quite aware the last 9 years have been extraordinary with the events that we've faced here in central Pennsylvania. Beginning, of course, when I came in 2014, and in 2016 we had the Attorney General announce the grand jury investigations, which went on in 2018. Then that devastating report. So the results of that historic study of the abuse of minors by clergy and other church personnel was so horrific. And to have had to face that, to be the voice and the public face of the church during that time was my responsibility, and I tried to accomplish that by being available. We had 9 town hall meetings, listening sessions where the large crowds gathered many times, and many people were able to ventilate their disappointment, their anger, their frustration, the harm. Some of the survivors spoke during those times, during those town hall meetings, and then we went on from that to the COVID in 2020, and we had to deal with that and the anger of so many people. I called on the mask wars, because we had such passionate people. You got to insist everybody wear masks, and then on the other side, passionately, we should not have to wear masks. And we're caught in the middle, both in our schools and in churches. Of course, our churches were closed for a period of time. And then it became necessary for the diocese for our own stability, financial stability, and also for the equity of those survivors who had claims against the diocese, to be able to give everybody a fair share in compensation. We did a compensation program, but we then entered into the bankruptcy process. So those are very major issues and extraordinary issues during the 9 years that I've been here. If you ask for my accomplishment, I thought about that question and or my achievement. I would say that what I would like to point out is how I tried during all of those different extraordinary challenges to keep our church on course, to keep the focus on Christ, to remain hope-filled, and to not abandon the mission that we were about in sanctifying, in shepherding, and in teaching. And because it's so easy when these curved balls come at us, both personally and as a church, to get derailed. And we can just sit there in shock and not do anything. And I hope that as we look back, that during the time and as we handled each of these crises, that we continued the course of what we needed to be doing, and that is to proclaim the gospel of Christ and to show love for Christ and love for our neighbors through our charitable and outreach work. So I would hope that that would be an actual achievement, and nothing that I've done personally, but that we could all together continue to keep our focus and continue to make progress in the direction that the Lord wants us to travel, despite those extraordinary challenges of the last 9 years.
It has not been an easy going, but I personally, as a parishioner in this diocese, I felt that you handled the situation with grace, and it was very easy to look to you as a shepherd, and it has been wonderful to kind of have your steadfast presence there. So thank you for that.
And I think one of the there's always we look for the silver lining in clouds. I think one of the positive results of especially dealing with COVID was our greater use and continuing to use wisely the social media. Mm-hmm. Now we some of our parishes were doing okay in that area, but it came to the point where all of our parishes were doing something, and many of our parishes were excelling in continuing to do the ministries of the parish, especially in preaching, teaching, and getting the liturgies into the homes of the faithful through the use of live streaming and other social media platforms. And I think that we've grown by that, and we've continued to develop that. And I think that God does bring. There's a saying that I like, that the Lord writes straight with crooked lines. Well, we had the crooked lines of the pandemic, but out of that came the straight line of a much better utilization of the means of communication in the diocese, and I'm sure that will continue to develop and be used fruitfully for the sake of the Church's mission.
Absolutely. Overall, not just necessarily in Harrisburg, but from Harrisburg and Lexington and your entire career as a bishop, what would you say has been your most memorable experience?
I would have to say that, and it's one that repeats annually, and that is the ordination of priests. And I'm particularly thinking here of my time in Harrisburg, although it was certainly true also in Lexington. But there's such a joy and such a spirit among the people who gather for that. These men have prepared for years and years for this moment in their life when they're ordained priests. And it is the ministry of the bishop, by the laying on of hands and praying that consecratory prayer, that takes this deacon and makes him a priest of Jesus Christ. And the liturgy itself is so glorious. I mean, the music, praying of the congregation, those for me are my greatest memories, because it's, first of all, it is one of the highest expressions of the bishop's ministry is to be able to ordain priests. And looking back on that, those I think are some of my greatest memories. That the joy, the festive liturgy, and the wonderful transition after so many years of preparation. These men walk out of the church now as priests, ready to serve us in the diocese. So priesthood ordination are my most memorable occasions and my greatest, happiest memories.
Moving forward, looking ahead, what are you looking forward to most in retirement?
I think it's the luxury of more time. There'll be fewer official demands on my time, and which would mean I'll be able to keep a less hectic schedule. And that for me will be a blessing. I'll have more time for reading and preparing. I will be homilies and talks that I might be giving. More time for prayer and solitude with our Lord at this time of my life, and also more time for connecting with friends. I have some wonderful, wonderful lifelong friends, and sometimes they get cheated because I can't see you now, and I can't go here, we can't go this together, we can't go there, we can't, because of my schedule. So I'm hoping that luxury of having a little more time, and I hope we use that wisely. It's one thing to have more time; it's another thing to waste it. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to have fewer demands on my schedule. And also for, as I say, for reading, for prayer, and for connecting with friends in a more qualitative and quantitative way.
That sounds like it will be fabulous. Is there anything else that you would like to say to the people of our diocese?
I would like everyone to know how grateful I am. This has been, despite those challenges and the extraordinary events that took place in these 9 years, I am so grateful to God, first of all, for the opportunity to have served here as the bishop of this wonderful diocese, and to have gotten to know such wonderful co-workers, to be supported by my collaborators here, both at the diocesan office and in the our clergy, our deacons, our religious, our lay leaders in this diocese, in all of our parishes, our schools, our other institutions. It has been a real blessing for me to get to know these wonderful, faithful Catholics, and to be a co-worker with them here in this part of the Lord's vineyard. So I just hope everyone knows the gratitude that I have toward everyone here, this opportunity to know so many and to serve together with them. This is our vocation, to know, love, and serve the Lord here, and one day to be happy with him in the hereafter. So I would just like everyone to know about my sincere and deep, profound gratitude to all whose lives have crossed the path of my life, and who have served together with me.
Well, Bishop Gaynor, we appreciate your time so much. Thank you so much for your leadership and your guidance, and for joining us here for this episode. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Rachel. It's always my pleasure. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you so much for listening. Our goal at the Diocese of Harrisburg is to walk with you on your faith journey. So if this episode resonated with you in any way, the easiest way to show your appreciation is by sharing this program with your network, or by leaving a review on your listening platform. You can also support us financially by making a donation online at hbgdiocese.org/DAC and clicking the Make a Donation button. Thanks again, and we'll see you at church on Sunday.